I never thought I would find myself in this situation. My name is Mark, and I've been married to Jennifer for 7 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. Sure, things weren't perfect, what marriage ever is. But we made it work, or at least I thought we did. The signs were there, but I chose to ignore them, a classic case of denial. Jennifer had been acting different lately. Little things, really. She'd come home late from work, and when I asked her about it, she'd brush it off, saying she was just catching up on projects. She'd become increasingly secretive with her phone, and I'd catch her texting with a smile that felt a little too warm for a conversation that didn't involve me. At times, I'd even hear her talking softly, almost flirtatiously, while I was in the other room. I'd tell myself I was being paranoid. Who was I to question her loyalty? But deep down, I knew something was off. The emotional distance was palpable. It felt like I was living with a stranger. I started to feel like I was in a one-sided relationship. I tried to make things better, planning romantic dinners, initiating heartfelt conversations, but the effort was met with a shrug. "I'm busy, Mark. I'm just stressed with work," she would say, rolling her eyes as if my concern was an inconvenience. Then it all came crashing down. One night I returned home early, hoping to surprise her. I walked into our living room where the dim lighting cast a cozy glow. I felt good. I had a bottle of wine and a plan to reconnect. But as I neared the bedroom, I heard muffled voices, her voice mingling with another. I froze, my heart pounding. The words I heard next sent ice through my veins. "I can't believe we're doing this," her voice said, low and sultry. "What if Mark finds out?" My blood ran cold. I edged closer, heart racing, and peered through the slightly open door. There they were, Jennifer and my therapist, Dr. Collins, entangled together on our bed. The shock ripped through me like a knife. How could she do this? And with him of all people. I had trusted Dr. Collins to help us work through our issues, not to betray me like this. I stumbled back, feeling sick. Everything clicked into place. The late nights, the secrecy, the sudden need for personal space. My emotional turmoil morphed into a burning rage. I couldn't stay there, not another moment. I grabbed my keys and stormed out, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. I drove aimlessly around town, my heart heavy with pain, anger, and disbelief. I thought of all the moments we'd shared, all the love I'd poured into our marriage. It felt like a cruel joke. How could she betray me with someone who was supposed to help us? I felt like a fool. Eventually, I found myself parked at a diner, the neon lights flickering outside. I ordered a coffee, trying to collect my thoughts. I could hardly swallow anything, my stomach twisted in knots. I stared out the window, watching the rain start to fall as if the world was crying with me. The confrontation needed to happen. I had to face her, to demand answers. But what answers could justify this betrayal? None. As I sat there, I felt a mixture of resolve and dread building inside me. The time for denial was over. I would confront her, and this time I wouldn't let her deflect my pain. I needed to know why she'd thrown everything away. I drove home with a storm brewing inside me. The rain hammered against my windshield, mirroring the chaos swirling in my head. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and walked to the door, my heart racing like a drum in my chest. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, threatening to explode. As I opened the door, the familiar scent of our home flooded my senses, but it felt foreign now. Jennifer was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. She looked up, her smile faltering when she saw my face. Without even saying a word, she knew something was wrong. I didn't give her the chance to deflect or brush me off this time. "Where's Dr. Collins?" I demanded, my voice steady but laced with fury. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her features. "What do you mean?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Cut the crap, Jennifer. I saw you with him," I shouted. The words felt like they'd been building for so long, and now they poured out of me like a flood. The color drained from her face, and for a moment she was silent. I watched as realization dawned on her. "You were supposed to be at work," she stammered, trying to gather herself. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Not meant for me to find out. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought it was okay to sleep with my therapist." The disbelief in my voice was palpable. My heart raced as I watched her squirm, trying to wriggle out of the tight space of her lies. "It's not what you think." Mark, you don't understand, she said, her voice rising defensively, but I was done listening to excuses. No, I think I understand perfectly. You betrayed me in the worst possible way. Everything you've said for the past few months has been a lie. I spat, feeling the heat of betrayal coursing through my veins. She took a step forward, tears brimming in her eyes. I was lost and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. Dr. Collins helped me feel understood. It just happened. Just happened, I echoed, disbelief mingling with rage. You think that's an excuse? You think that's okay? I trusted you, Jennifer. She moved to grab my arm, but I pulled away, not wanting her touch, feeling contaminated by her betrayal. You're my wife. We were supposed to be working on our issues together, not sleeping with the guy who's supposed to help us. Her face twisted into a mixture of guilt and defiance. What do you want from me, Mark? I was unhappy, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought I could find solace in someone who understood what I was going through. You thought cheating was the answer. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream. This isn't about me not understanding, this is about you not caring about what we had. She turned away, wiping her tears. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought this was the only way. Her voice trailed off, as if she was trying to convince herself of her own narrative. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. I could see the lies in her eyes, the way she tried to twist the story to paint herself as the victim. The only way, is that what? You tell yourself to justify this? I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. You've ruined everything, Jennifer. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm still me, Mark. I lost my way, she pleaded, desperation creeping into her tone. Lost your way. You chose to throw our marriage away. I snapped back. My heart was a mix of rage and sadness, each battling for domination. I felt betrayed not only by her actions, but by the shattered dreams of the life we were supposed to build together. I turned away, needing some space to think, to breathe. The walls of our home felt like they were closing in on me, and I couldn't bear the thought of staying there another moment. I need time, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need to figure out what I want, what I deserve. Where are you going? She called after me, her voice tinged with panic. Anywhere but here, I replied, stepping out of the house and into the downpour. The rain dripped from my hair, mixing with the tears I refused to shed. I didn't want to cry over a betrayal that felt too deep to comprehend. As I walked, I felt a strange mix of liberation and despair. I had opened the door to the truth, and it felt like stepping off a cliff. I didn't know where I would land, but I knew I wouldn't go back to the way things were. The night stretched on, and I wandered through the streets, the rain soaking me to the bone. I was angry, heartbroken, and confused, but deep down, a small part of me felt a flicker of determination. I wouldn't just be a victim in this situation. I would take control of my life, even if it meant facing a future I never anticipated. After wandering the streets, drenched and lost in my thoughts, I finally found myself at a diner not too far from my home. The neon lights buzzed, offering a warmth I desperately needed. I stepped inside, shaking off the cold and looking for a place to gather my thoughts. The familiar smell of coffee and bacon hit me as I took a seat in a booth in the back, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. I ordered a coffee, and as I waited, my mind raced with questions. How did we get here? How could someone I loved so deeply betray me in such a fundamental way? The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, and I could still hear Jennifer's excuses ringing in my ears, drowning out the voice of reason. After a while, my coffee arrived, and I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, trying to absorb its heat. The waitress gave me a sympathetic smile, clearly sensing my distress, but I didn't have the energy to engage. I could feel the tears welling up again, but I fought them back. I refused to break down in a public place. I thought about the conversations Jennifer and I had had over the years, the dreams we shared and the vows we made. They now felt like distant memories, overshadowed by her betrayal. I thought of the therapy sessions with Dr. Collins, who I'd trusted implicitly, trusted to help us work through our issues, not to become a part of the problem. I felt like an absolute fool. A wave of anger surged through me again. This wasn't just about Jennifer's infidelity. It was about the manipulation and the betrayal of trust. I thought about how I would confront her again. I needed answers, but I also needed to be strategic. I wasn't going to let her spin this into a narrative where she could play the victim. I pulled out my phone and stared at it, contemplating my next steps. I had to make a decision. Could I salvage our marriage after this? Was there any way to rebuild after such a devastating blow? My heart said yes, but my mind was screaming no. The thought of working it out felt exhausting, a Sisyphean task that I wasn't sure I could undertake. As I sipped my coffee, I remembered something Dr. Collins had told me during one of our sessions. You can't fix something that isn't broken on your end. Jennifer's actions were not a reflection of my worth, they were a reflection of her choices. The realization struck me hard. I needed to face the truth about my marriage and about Jennifer's betrayal. I thought about what I wanted, what I deserved. I had always been the one to put our relationship first, but now it was clear that I had to prioritize myself. I made a mental note to stop thinking about what Jennifer needed and start focusing on what I needed. After a while, I decided that I couldn't just react emotionally. I needed a plan. I would confront Dr. Collins and demand answers. I would let him know that I was aware of the affair and wouldn't stand for it. He had crossed a line that should never have been crossed, and I was going to make sure he understood the gravity of his actions. As I left the diner, I felt a sense of purpose washing over me. I might have been betrayed, but I wasn't defeated. I was going to take control of my life and make sure that I wouldn't be a victim of their choices. I had the power to choose my next steps, and I would not let anyone take that away from me. When I got home, it was late, and the house was dark. I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me as I stepped inside. Jennifer was sitting on the couch, her face illuminated by the dim light of the TV. She looked up when I entered, her expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Mark, where were you?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I needed time to think," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Can we please talk?" she pleaded, her eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath, steel forming in my resolve. "We can talk, but it's not going to be what you think." Her brow furrowed, and I could see the confusion on her face. "What do you mean?" "I'm done with all the lies, Jennifer. I know about you and Dr. Collins," I said, keeping my voice steady. Panic flashed in her eyes. "Mark, please, it's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like. You betrayed me, and I deserve to know why. You were supposed to be my partner, not my enemy," I said, feeling the anger bubble to the surface again. "I made a mistake," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It was just a moment of weakness. I didn't mean to hurt you. A moment of weakness. You've been planning this for months. You lied to me, Jennifer. You lied to my face." I felt the fury rising again, but I fought to calm down. "I was confused. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings. You were always so busy," she said defensively. I shook my head, trying to keep my composure. "That's not an excuse. You chose to cheat instead of talking to me. You completely disregarded our vows, our commitment to one another." My heart ached at the realization of what she had done, but I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by her tears. "I want to fix this, Mark. I'll do anything, therapy again, whatever it takes. Just please don't leave me," she begged, her voice frantic. "Fix this. You've burned that bridge," I replied, my voice firm. "I need to think about what I want moving forward, and right now, I can't see a way back to what we had." Her sobs filled the silence of the room as I walked away from her, knowing that the next steps were mine to take. I felt the weight of my decision settle in my chest, a mixture of sadness and certainty. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to fight for myself, ready to reclaim my life from the ashes of betrayal. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. Each moment bled into the next, and I could hardly focus on anything other than the betrayal that had rocked my world. Jennifer was still in the house, and we were like two strangers sharing the same space, her presence a constant reminder of the pain she had caused. I could see her trying to reach out, attempting to start conversations or apologize, but I was in no place to comfort her. I needed to prioritize my healing, not hers. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the moments we had shared, the laughter, the love, and the dreams we had built together, now tainted by her infidelity. I felt like a ghost wandering through my own life, trapped between anger and sadness. I sought refuge in my work, throwing myself into tasks as a distraction. But no matter how hard I tried to escape the reality of my situation, it loomed over me like a dark cloud. I finally decided I had to confront Dr. Collins. I needed to hear his side of the story, to understand how he could betray the very ethics he was supposed to uphold. I scheduled an appointment and sat in the waiting room, my heart pounding. I could feel the anxiety creeping in, but I knew I had to be strong. I wouldn't let him manipulate the conversation or twist the narrative in his favor. When I finally entered his office, I was taken aback by how calm he appeared. He smiled at me, as if I were just another client walking in for a session. I felt a surge of disgust wash over me. How could he act like everything was normal? "Mark, it's good to see you," he said, motioning for me to sit down. "Good to see me, really. I just wanted to talk about your extracurricular activities with my wife." I snapped, my voice sharp. His smile faltered and he leaned back in his chair, his demeanor shifting. "I think we should discuss this calmly," he said, trying to regain control of the situation. "Calmly? Do you have any idea how much you've ruined my life?" I spat, feeling the anger rising again. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. "You were supposed to help us, and instead you chose to sleep with my wife." He shifted uncomfortably, the facade of professionalism slipping. "Mark, I made a mistake. I never intended for things to go that far," he began, but I cut him off. "Never intended? That sounds like a convenient excuse. You knew what you were doing. You crossed a line that should never have been crossed." My chest tightened with rage as I leaned forward. "Let's not forget that Jennifer is an adult and made her own choices," he said, the defensiveness creeping into his tone. "Is that really your defense? Blame it on her." I was livid. "You were supposed to be a licensed professional, a therapist. You violated every ethical standard in the book." "I regret my actions. I truly do. But I also believe that Jennifer was looking for something that was lacking in her marriage," he replied, his voice steady but defensive. "Is that your justification for sleeping with her? If you thought she was unhappy, why didn't you suggest couples therapy instead of jumping into bed with her?" I felt like I was losing my grip, but I couldn't let him see that. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to back down. "I thought I could help her find herself again," he said, his brows furrowing. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought it was what she needed." "What she needed? You have no idea what she needed." I shot back. "You both made a choice to betray me, and now you're trying to paint this as some kind of therapy session gone wrong. It's disgusting." His expression hardened, and for a moment I could see the facade of professionalism crumble. "Mark, it's not as black and white as you think. Emotions are complicated, and sometimes people act on impulse. Impulsively sleeping with my wife is not just an oops moment." I shouted. "You both manipulated my trust for your own selfish desires." "I didn't mean for it to happen." He protested, but I could see that his confidence was starting to waver. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "What's done is done, but you need to understand the consequences of your actions. I want you to understand how your choices have affected my life. You've betrayed not just my trust, but the trust that people place in you as a therapist. I will be reporting this to your licensing board. You don't deserve to practice." His expression shifted to one of alarm, and I could see the panic rising in his eyes. "Mark, please reconsider. This can be handled privately. I can help you both work through this." "No, you've lost that privilege," I replied coldly. "You don't get to choose how this ends, and you certainly don't get to manipulate anyone anymore." I stood up, feeling a surge of power surging through me. I was reclaiming my narrative, and I wouldn't let anyone take that away from me. I walked out of the office, leaving Dr. Collins speechless behind me. As I drove home, I felt lighter, the burden of his deceit lifting even if just a little. I still had to confront Jennifer, but I was finally regaining control of my life. I was done being the victim. I would make it clear to her that my journey to healing would not include her lies or her betrayal. I would heal on my own terms. When I got home, I found Jennifer sitting on the couch, her face pale and drawn. I could see the apprehension in her eyes, and I knew she was waiting for me to say something, but I wasn't ready to talk yet. Instead, I sat down across from her, silence enveloping us like a shroud. I needed her to feel the weight of what she had done. Finally, I broke the silence. "I spoke to Dr. Collins," I said, my voice steady. Her eyes widened in shock, and I could see her heart race. "What did he say?" "It doesn't matter what he said. What matters is what you've done," I replied, cutting her off before she could spin another tale. "I'll do anything to make it right, Mark. I promise." she pleaded, desperation in her voice, but I had made my decision. You need to understand that you've lost my trust. It's not something that can be fixed overnight. I need time to figure out what I want, and right now, I can't see a future for us. Her face crumbled as she processed my words, and I could see the realization dawning on her. What are you saying? She whispered, sadness and fear mingling in her gaze. I'm saying I need to heal, and that journey starts with me, not with you. I stood up and walked to my room, leaving her to process the reality of her choices. I felt a mix of sadness and resolve wash over me. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this was a pivotal moment in my life, a turning point. I would heal, and I would do it for myself. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I set boundaries with Jennifer, making it clear that I needed space. I started to focus on myself, trying to find solace in activities that brought me joy. I began exercising again, hitting the gym every morning before work. It felt good to sweat out the anxiety and frustration that had settled in my chest. I even picked up running, something I hadn't done in years. Each mile felt like a release, a way to shed the weight of betrayal that had burdened me. I also began journaling. I hadn't written much since college, but pouring my thoughts onto paper helped me process the chaos swirling in my mind. I wrote about my feelings, my anger, my sadness, and my hopes for the future. I found solace in the act of putting pen to paper, a therapeutic outlet that allowed me to confront my emotions head-on. Jennifer tried to engage me during this time, attempting to have conversations about our marriage, but I remained distant. I needed her to understand the gravity of her actions. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done, how it shattered our lives. Each time she reached out, I reminded myself of the hurt I felt, the betrayal that still hung heavy in the air. I wasn't ready to forgive, and I wasn't willing to pretend that everything was fine. One night I was sitting on the couch, watching mindless television when Jennifer approached me. Her face was drawn, and I could see the toll the situation was taking on her. "Mark, can we talk?" she asked, her voice a mix of hope and trepidation. I turned off the TV, preparing myself for the conversation I knew was coming. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "I know things have been hard, but I want to fix this," she said, sitting on the edge of the couch, her body tense. "I miss us, I miss you. I miss the person I thought you were," I replied, feeling the anger bubble up again. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "But you need to understand that it's not that simple. You made a choice that has consequences." "I know, and I regret it every day," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been trying to find ways to show you I'm serious about making things right." "What does that even mean?" I shot back. "You think saying I'm sorry is enough? You think you can just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen?" "No, I know it's not that easy," she said, her eyes searching mine. "But I want to prove to you that I can change, that I can be the wife you deserve." I held my gaze steady, trying to read the sincerity in her eyes. "You have to understand that trust is earned, not given. You shattered mine, and I don't know if I can ever see you the same way again. I know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild it. I'll go to therapy, whatever you need," she implored, her voice rising with desperation. I shook my head. "Therapy won't fix what's broken if you don't truly understand why you did this. You need to dig deep and confront your own demons before you can even think about fixing this." "Please, Mark, I love you. I don't want to lose you," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't know if love is enough anymore," I replied, my voice heavy with the weight of my emotions. "You need to understand that I'm not the only one hurting here. We both need to face the consequences of our choices." The conversation hung between us, a heavy silence settling in the air. I could see the conflict in her eyes, part fear, part realization. As much as it pained me to see her like this, I knew I had to stand my ground. I couldn't let her manipulate my emotions or coax me into forgiving her too quickly. "I'm not ready to forgive you, Jennifer," I said gently but firmly. "I need to figure out what my life looks like without you. I need to rediscover who I am outside of this marriage." She nodded, the tears still spilling down her cheeks. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just know that I'm here and I'll be waiting for you." I stood, feeling the weight of my decision settle in my chest. "I hope you take this time to reflect on what happened. I hope you understand the gravity of your choices. As I walked away, my heart ached. I didn't want to hurt her, but I knew that I had to be true to myself. I had to put my own healing first, even if it meant stepping back from the relationship altogether. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to focus on myself. I started going out with friends, reconnecting with people I hadn't seen in years. I found comfort in their company, reminding me of the life I had before marriage. I laughed and joked, allowing myself to feel a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos of my emotions. I even started to explore new hobbies, picking up painting again. There was something therapeutic about expressing my emotions through art. Each brushstroke felt like a release, a way to process my feelings without needing to articulate them verbally. I felt a sense of empowerment growing within me, a spark of determination to reclaim my life. But as I moved through this healing journey, Jennifer remained a constant presence, her attempts to reach out gradually diminishing. I could see the weight of regret in her eyes, the toll that my distance was taking on her. But I knew I had to stay firm. One day, as I was coming home from the gym, I noticed her sitting on the porch, staring out into the distance. She looked lost, and for a moment I felt a pang of compassion. But I quickly reminded myself that this was a part of the consequences of her actions. She needed to feel this pain to understand the weight of her betrayal. I walked past her quietly, unsure of what to say or do. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to hold her, but I knew that wouldn't help either of us. I needed to keep moving forward even if that meant leaving her behind. And then just as I was about to enter the house, she called out to me. "Mark, can we talk?" I paused, turning to face her. "What is it, Jennifer?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I've realized that I need to work on myself, regardless of what happens with us." That simple statement felt like a breakthrough, a sign that she was starting to take responsibility for her actions. "I think that's a good idea," I replied cautiously. "You need to focus on healing for yourself." "I want to be a better person, not just for you, but for me," she said quietly, her eyes pleading. "I hope that one day you can forgive me, even if it takes time." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions flood over me. "Forgiveness is a process, Jennifer. It's going to take time, but I hope you truly find what you're looking for." "I will," she promised, her voice firm. As I stepped inside, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were both on separate paths, but at least now we were acknowledging the reality of our situation. Healing would take time, but for the first time, I felt like we were moving in the right direction, individually. And maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other someday. But for now, I had to focus on myself. As the weeks turned into months, I continued on my path of self-discovery, focusing on my healing and growth. Jennifer had taken her words to heart, committing to her own journey of introspection. I could see a change in her, albeit slow and gradual. She started attending therapy on her own, and I hoped she was genuinely working through her issues. While I was still angry about her betrayal, I began to understand that healing wasn't just about forgiveness. It was also about learning to let go of the pain that had tethered me to the past. I started to explore new facets of myself that had been buried beneath the weight of our relationship. I reconnected with old friends, found joy in painting, and even took up hiking, something I had loved but had neglected for far too long. I still had moments of sadness and anger, but I began to accept that it was all part of the healing process. I allowed myself to feel the hurt, but I also made a conscious effort to focus on the positives in my life. I started to enjoy my own company, finding strength in independence rather than viewing it as loneliness. One evening, I found myself sitting on my back porch, the sun setting in vibrant hues of orange and pink. I had a glass of wine in hand, reflecting on how far I had come. It was peaceful, and for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. I had weathered the storm of betrayal and emerged stronger, more self-aware, and determined to build a life that was truly mine. I hadn't fully ruled out the possibility of reconciling with Jennifer, but I knew that it would take more than just time. It would require honesty, accountability, and a commitment to rebuilding trust from the ground up. I wasn't willing to jump into anything without being certain it was right for me. Then one day, out of the blue, Jennifer texted me, asking if we could meet for coffee. My heart raced at the thought, and I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Part of me was curious to see how she had changed, but another part was wary, afraid of reopening old wounds. I took a deep breath and agreed. We met at a cozy cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloping us as I walked in. I spotted her at a small table in the corner, fidgeting with her hands. She looked nervous, and a part of me understood the gravity of this meeting. As I approached, she offered a small smile, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said softly as I sat down. "Of course," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "How have you been?" "I've been working on myself, just like I said I would," she began, her voice earnest. "I've been through a lot of therapy sessions and have been figuring out why I made the choices I did." I nodded, my curiosity piqued. And I realized that it wasn't just about the marriage or you. It was about me feeling lost and disconnected from who I am. I didn't know how to express that to you, so I sought comfort in the wrong places. "I'm sorry for all the hurt I caused," she said, her eyes reflecting genuine remorse. Hearing her admit this was a step in the right direction, and it felt refreshing to see her taking accountability for her actions. "I appreciate you saying that," I replied, my heart softening just a bit. "But it's going to take time for me to fully process everything." "I understand," she said, taking a breath as if gathering her thoughts. "I'm not here to pressure you into anything. I just wanted to show you that I'm committed to changing, even if that means you need to take your time." "Change is important," I agreed. "But it's also important that I focus on my own healing first. I can't rush into anything without being sure it's what I want." "I get that," she said, her voice steady. "I just want you to know that I'll be here, ready to support you as you navigate your journey." As we continued to talk, I felt a sense of ease settling in. We discussed our lives, our goals, and eventually even laughed a little. It was a strange feeling, almost like a breath of fresh air. For the first time, I saw glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, and it was comforting. But I also knew that I couldn't allow nostalgia to cloud my judgment. When it was time to leave, I felt a mix of hope and caution. "I'm glad we talked," I said, standing up from the table. "Let's keep this dialogue open, but I need time to figure out what I want." "Of course," she replied, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I'm here whenever you're ready." As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a sense of relief. I wasn't ready to jump back into a relationship, but I was open to the possibility of healing together if that's where life took us. I recognized that both of us were growing, and that was a hopeful sign. In the months that followed, we continued to meet occasionally, sharing our experiences and supporting each other's growth. It was slow and steady, and I found a sense of balance in my life. I was learning to navigate the complexities of emotional healing, and for the first time, I felt empowered to define my future on my own terms. As I embraced this new chapter of my life, I realized that healing isn't a destination. It's a journey filled with unexpected turns and revelations. I learned that betrayal doesn't have to define me, and I could rise above it, finding strength in vulnerability. I had transformed my pain into resilience, and while the future remained uncertain, I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, whether it meant rebuilding a relationship with Jennifer or forging a new path entirely. I had learned that the most important relationship I could nurture was the one I had with myself, and that was a foundation worth building upon.